Hey everybody, it's another outdoor discussion about gravel bikes. I am here with Jesse Smith. Jesse, along with his wife Chase, own and operate the bicycle station in Columbus, Indiana. So, Jesse, welcome, man.
Yeah, thanks, Elton.
Hey, before we get started, I would really like to just congratulate you on the latest addition to the bicycle station family.
Yeah.
What's her name, and how's mom and daughter doing?
We're doing pretty. I mean, we're doing great, but it's the baby's name is Gentry, and it's I think just transitioning into having a baby around. Nothing's really changed too much, but it's all new and like everything just takes more time is really what it is right now. I think once we have a year or two and she is more of a person, that's when it's going to get hard.
Yeah.
Like right now,
she's not a person right this moment.
It's not really I mean, like barely. Although she's got a little bit of personality. The way I feel is that it's more of a chore than anything else. Because it's like okay, the baby's crying, and then like there's like 3 things that you need to do, and one of them will fix it, and then you're good.
Yeah.
So no, I think that toddler is going to be when it gets hard because of just what some of the other, like Chase's brother's kids, especially Chase's brother Zane's daughter, is very opinionated.
Okay.
Yeah.
They get to that point.
Yeah, so I think that would be but then at that point it'll be more fun too.
Yeah. So Gentry, when you watch this in 10, 15 years, don't be too mad at your dad.
This is totally like, I've thought about this a lot because whenever we grew up, like I don't have a catalog of social media that my parents created, right?
Right.
But I have hours of content on the internet that is, I don't know if the internet will, like if it'll get wiped out or what, or if YouTube decides to shut it down, or I don't think that's gonna happen. But I've thought about that, like,
yeah.
Like wow, what, like my friend Jimmy posted a photo of him hugging his son, and he mentioned how he hopes that his son sees it in the future, and I thought that was really interesting to like kind of think about, because we're now starting to be like, kids are growing up with these like catalogs of information about their parents that they wouldn't otherwise really have.
That's really amazing.
Hey, when you guys want to have a dog titty with you?
Nah,
Jesse, hey, let's dive right in, man. Hey, so really, you haven't been, cycling for a long time, but you're sort of a natural athlete. I know you were a collegiate swimmer. Tell us a little bit about that and how you kind of got into cycling and owning your own shop.
That'll happen really quickly in reality. I swam 4 years in college for a pretty solid D3 swim team. It was Denison University in Ohio. In my senior year, I had like a pretty bad back injury. I slipped 3 discs in my back, and I guess I still have that. I mean, I kind of forget about it. So the only thing in my senior year, the only thing that would like make my back not hurt was riding the stationary bike. And my dad was really into cycling, and I remember going home that winter, and like my swimming career was over, and the only reason I was still on the team was because I was a senior and I had made it like 4 years on a college team, and we were good, and so like nobody was trying to like tell me to not show up, and so
yeah.
But I kind of was like, I don't know, I literally never swam until like the last swim meet. They put a cortisone shot in my back like
really?
The week before, and I swam my final swim meet, and that was it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but no, what I was really doing was I would go to practice and I would ride the stationary bike, and then I finally just brought a bike from home. My dad, like I said, used to race mountain bikes a lot back in the 90s. He was pretty good, or early 2000s era, and he was still like an avid cyclist, so I had a bunch of awesome hand-me-down bikes in the garage, and so I brought one to my dorm. It was a small liberal arts school, so we lived in dorms for 4 years. But I would just go ride the bike path every night for swim practice. I'd like show up and then I'd leave and go get on the bike.
Yeah.
I wish I had Strava back then, because I think it'd be really cool to see what I was doing.
Kind of the mileage you were putting in.
Yeah, because it's funny to look back at that. And then I remember that winter we always went on a training trip to Naples, Florida, during like Christmas break basically. You'd go home for Christmas, get back like the day after New Year's, and then we'd get on a bus and go to Florida. The reason I'm bringing that up is because I didn't go.
Oh.
And because I couldn't sit on the bus for 24 plus hours. So there's no way I could have made it.
So that was how severe your pain was?
Yeah, my back hurt that bad. And at one point I was on crutches. It was so bad. And so like the doctor told me I was going to have surgery and all this stuff. And so what ended up happening is I stayed home the whole time, and I was in Indiana in Bloomington, which is where I'm from. And my dad and his buddies always did the gravel, and they had done it for a couple years. And so me and my friend entered it, and that ended up being my first bike race as an adult. Was the gravel in, I think it was 2015.
2015.
Yeah, you can look up that result still on Dino's website. It took me like 5-ish hours. It rained the whole time. It was crazy, and I just loved it so much. And then graduated from college. There's no post-grad swimming for the most part, unless some dudes stick it out and try to make the Olympic trials, which is totally at the level that we were at. Like, not for me personally, but a lot of my friends like went to Olympic trials, and I mean I'm friends with a lot of Olympians too. So it's a small world at the top of swimming in the U.S. So
I bet.
And I train with IU in the summertime, so like all the IU Olympians from that era, they're still active, but those guys are really cool. They're always super welcoming and really fun to train with.
Yeah.
Like Blake Peroni and Cody Taylor. I mean, Cody's been mostly like a podcaster now, but he. Anyway, so
it really began. I mean, hopping on a bike was really just sort of back rehab. As you were a swimmer.
Yeah, and that's.
And then it just kind of led into your first race in 2015.
Yeah, and then I got home from college and I went and worked with my dad. He was an industrial bridge painter, and my family had owned this business forever, and I just was doing union painting work, industrial bridge painting, which was really cool. But he just kept it going. We'd get home from a job and we'd be done at like 2 or 3 a lot of days, or even earlier, depending on what we were doing, because we started at like 5.
Right.
And so we'd go ride like almost every day. I rode every day. It was awesome. Like, and then that's wherever he told me about Strava.
Yeah.
And so I started using Strava, and at this point, I want to be clear, I was still in like. The reason like I had such a head start was because of the swimming career. So I showed up to the community and I didn't really know anything, but the only thing I knew was the Strava leaderboard. And so I just looked at what I did for like the first 2 years of my cycling career was I would just try to beat every KOM. And that started to work, and I started to beat them.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I had no clue what I was doing.
And would you say like sort of your foundation as a swimmer and cardiovascularly, you probably had a pretty good foundation to be a pretty good cyclist early on?
I probably had higher peak sprint power back then than I do now.
Oh.
But I don't know. Because I didn't have a power meter.
You didn't have a power meter.
Yeah, so like nowadays I train for like more endurance things, and that's what I've told you before. I've lost a lot of weight since that time, in just muscle mass, and maybe just fat too. But the swimming, I was a sprinter.
Yeah.
Okay, so my
as a swimmer.
specialization was sub 2-minute races in the pool.
Okay.
So I would do the 200, 150. The 50 is 20 seconds and no breathing at all. Like my 100 was very little breathing. Like I can't remember my times, but I was a collegiate swimmer. I was reasonably fast, but the 200 was where I was the best, and I was like somewhere in the 142s, 143s ish. I can't remember at all.
Wow.
But like that event is basically, the 200 is all about like trying to die slowly. So you die no matter what in that event, and it's all you kind of bracket it out. The first 50, you have so much adrenaline that you don't even think about what you're doing. You just swim a 50, and then you try to not swim the next 50 as fast because it's still going to feel easy. And then the third one is extremely hard because you've built up all this lactic acid.
Yeah.
And then the last one, you basically have nothing left and you're drowning and you just have to finish the race.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so that's where like that event I think translated really well into doing like the punchy hill climbing around the Bloomington area that I was really good at the time.
Wow.
Yeah,
I could see where that training in swimming translated, pretty well.
Yeah.
Attacking those hills. So.
Yeah, because I would go on these crazy rides, man. I'll wait for the fire truck. I was going out on these crazy rides where I would just, and I didn't even really know where I was at the time, but I would just sprint every hill and just try to win every KOM. I would just be like, okay, here's a hill, I'll just sprint. Yeah. And then I got to the next one, I'd be like, okay, sprint again. It was crazy.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Most of those times have been beaten, by the way, but the kids have gotten pretty fast.
Your next race, Jesse, is a mouthful. Glacial drainage gravel grinder, and we're excited about that because STS is collaborating with you and Chase and the bicycle station to help kind of put this out there.
I'm gonna have this guy right here.
What's up, man?
Hey guys, just for full disclosure, we are filming outdoors and outside of the parking lot, and Jesse is helping customers, so we have to momentarily pause here and there. So Jesse, we left off with the glacial drainage gravel grinder. Again, that is a mouthful, man. Super awesome name. Who came up with that?
I did.
Glacial drainage. I mean,
so
were you a science major or what?
I was a geoscience minor.
Okay.
Because I wasn't good enough to be a major. But so what I did is that's where the Karst Crusher came from too.
Okay.
Because there's been like so many naming controversies with like races recently, and so I was just like, let's just do something that's like super different, and like I was like, let's just be geology. And so everything I've tried to keep in the geology realm. And so what I did is I started Googling like the different ways, in Madison, just looking at like the different topography and like what the geology of the region was. And most of it is it's all glaciers receding and carving the land out, and that's why it's so hilly. It's hillier than here. Yeah, so that's where the name came from, and that's why we've in the title we put like, it's not about the weather, it's about the geology.
Oh wow. So but for those of you that is not aware where Madison is, it is in very southern Indiana, and you're right, Jesse, it's pretty hilly. There are parts of Madison where you almost think you're not in Indiana.
Yeah, no, it doesn't feel like Indiana, and I'm gonna take a step back here, so like, because I can see your next question there. And I'm going to switch it around because I think it makes more sense to start about how this whole thing came to be.
So Jesse just revealed that it's not coming straight off my head. I'm actually using a dry erase board.
Which is what you should do. Okay, so I feel like this story begins with kind of a larger conversation about, so like we were talking about how I like mountain biking more. Well, I also really like gravel bikes, and the reason I like gravel bikes, and and the reason I do an occasional gravel race is that I'm really into exploring with, and that's where like whenever I am doing these events, gravel is the most inclusive form of cycling in my opinion, especially for an event. And so I set out on gravel rides, and I have this computer app called Wander Earth, and basically I am trying to ride every road in Indiana, and it keeps track of what roads I've ridden, which ones I haven't.
Oh wow.
And so that's where, like, if you see my Strava, I'm always in these weird places, and that's because I'm trying to get more new areas in. I went on a ride on Monday, and I was like, this is amazing. I rode in like southeast of North Vernon.
Oh yeah.
And that was some great riding there. I was super happy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna help these guys.
Okay, sounds good. You okay? Everything?
Yeah. I just told them to yell at me if they're gonna buy something.
Okay. So you're in North Vernon.
Yeah, and I was just doing, so like, currently I don't even own a road bike, because what ends up happening is I'll go on road rides, but I always am trying to fill in new places in the map. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it's uncharted territory, like places that not many people ride, and so nobody really knows, like, oh yeah, that's obviously a gravel road. And so then I'll just be riding along and I'd be like, oh shit, this is obviously a gravel road.
Yeah.
And
where no road bike has any business.
yeah, and so that's why I have so many gravel bikes now, because it's just like there's no purpose for me to own a road bike. But what we did is I had been curious about Madison for a while. There's a website called Gravel Maps, and some people kind of mark where gravel roads are, mm-hmm. and I'm one of those people. I try to update it whenever I can. And Madison had a bunch of stuff, and I was like, what is going on there? So one day me and Chase just went out, and we rode up that B Camp road.
Yeah.
And I was just like blown away. I was like, this is crazy.
It is crazy.
Yeah.
I've ridden it, and yeah, it's gnarly.
And so from there, I was like, okay, there's something here. I love the town. I love the whole atmosphere. And I was like, there is some sort of thing here that we can bring to the wider cycling community.
Yeah.
And so it took me a while of exploring, and I've explored a lot of the roads. I still don't claim to be a master of the region, but I'm pretty confident in my course that it turned out to be a good course. I want to give a disclaimer. That first B Camp road is nothing else is like that in the entire course.
So if you can get through
that first road,
you're fine.
Yeah,
right.
You're fine.
Okay.
But it's pretty rough, and it's a little. I think it's even rougher now. I rode it 2 weeks ago, and I was like, oh crap.
Well, appreciate the disclaimer, especially for those that are watching and is interested in doing the glacial drainage gravel grinder, because if you can get through that, I mean, initially when you're on that, this can be pretty discouraging because there's many miles left, but it gets easier, right?
It gets easier. It doesn't get less hilly, but it gets easier. There's one more disclaimer I want to say. There's 3 sections where it says road closed. Just ignore it.
Okay.
It's not closed.
Okay.
Well, it is closed for cars, but there's no reason you can't ride your bike through it. And I've tested it all. Like one of the roads has the river washed away a section of the lane closest to the river, mm-hmm. and so there's still like a completely smooth paved lane there, but you couldn't drive a car through. So that's why they have the road closed. But it doesn't matter for the bike. Just ride through it.
Just ride through it.
Yeah, and then there's another section that is one of my favorite parts of the whole course. You kind of are in farm fields, and then it kind of turns into like a beach, and then you cross a little causeway kind of thing.
Okay.
They've closed that to cars just because I think they just don't want cars on it anymore.
Okay.
Like nothing is impeding your way through. It's just that I don't think they want you to drive a car over it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But on the bike.
Yeah, totally fine.
Okay.
And so I did want to just mention that. At the event, I'm gonna do that again before we start, so people understand.
Well, good. Well, Team STS is excited to partner with you. We're gonna be on a couple sections of the route to provide aid and refreshments. Anything else you'd like to let people know about it? It's free.
Yeah, it's totally free. We're gonna try to do some sort of cookout. We'll at least, at a minimum, have beer at the end of the event. I've talked to the city about it, and they were like, "Go for it." The one thing we kind of mentioned this. So it's about 55 miles with about 4,500 feet of climbing, and that's pretty major.
Yeah.
So and the reason I'm bringing that up isn't because I want to scare people away. I don't think it's going to be like, if you ride it, it'll just be a fun day. If you race it, it'll be hard. Speaking of racing it, I did set a course record, so you can try to beat my time. I just was right around 3 hours with it, so there is an official Strava segment. If you want to try to beat the Strava segment, you can.
Oh, wow.
If you don't want to, you don't have to. This is a totally whatever you want to do kind of thing, but yeah, I did set a benchmark if you're interested in that kind of thing. But back to the hills, I just want to give people this thought. It's so hilly, and it's very different than like Brown County riding. The descents are long, and if you're not used to that, I want to just caution you, because you'll be on your brakes for a while. And like, so my word of advice is, don't like send the downhills. They're long, and they get steep in parts. I don't think anything's dangerous, but it is just totally different than what you might be used to if you're more of a Brown County gravel rider.
Okay.
Yeah.
What would be your recommended setup as far as your gravel bike for those that aren't familiar with the area and interested in riding?
So it's about 65-ish, 70% gravel. There's a lot of pavement in there.
Okay.
Treat it like a gravel ride, because the descending, there's a lot of brake bumps from cars, so you'll just want to make sure that you keep it, you want a bike that's capable. I would say minimum of a 40 millimeter tire would be recommended. That B Camp road is just an outlier. You'll get through that road, no worries there. I might have to jump out, but then personally, I would run 40s, but if you're nervous about maybe a rougher terrain, I think a 45 would be beneficial.
Well, man, Jesse, thanks so much, and juggling, operating the business today and speaking with us, and we really appreciate your partnership with STS, and we're looking forward to I'm going to say it one last time, the Glacial Drainage Gravel Grinder, October 23rd in Madison, Indiana.
Yeah.
Thanks, brother.
See you guys.
All right. Explore confidently.